And we are back here on Open. We're currently in the midst of a challenging high school admissions season in New York City. Tens of thousands of students that are actually, and specifically eighth graders, exploring their options, touring different high schools, completing applications, and then gearing up for specialized high school admissions test schedule. Several organizations are actually offering comprehensive help to support students in the Bronx and their families to really be able to navigate through this process. And joining me now, I've got the Program Director at WHEDco, Nicole Jennings, and Academic Program Director at the New York Junior Tennis and Learning. We've got Raiyan Nafee, and we thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, and so Nicole, I think I'll start with you. I mean, first off, it's a as I said in the intro, it's a little bit of a rough season for some students, but WHEDco has really done a great job of really trying to navigate students through this, through some of their after-school programs and programs. So, give us a little insight here.
Sure. So WHEDco is a nonprofit based in the Bronx, and one of the things we do is support students through all kinds of education, and one of them is through the high school process, which can be incredibly challenging, complicated, a lot of information for families to metabolize. The high school admissions process has moved from something that students do and families do with a guidance counselor to solely the family's responsibility. So that has put an added element of stress on families to really understand how to navigate the high school admissions process in New York City. So we really try to support students in every way we can by staying up to date with the changes and giving them the information and the updates that they need in order to succeed in this process.
And Raiyan, I know that there's the Scholar Athletes Program sponsored by your organization. Talk to us a little bit about the Scholar Athletes Program and how that works.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. But to tell you guys a little bit about the Scholar Athlete Program, so I work up in Crotona Park at the Carey Lead Center with the Scholar Athlete Program. So the Scholar Athlete Program is donor funded. We work with about 75 students. They're all in grades 3 to 12. The students are low income. They come from all across New York City, and really we do have a large number of students from the Bronx area. And we work with students. We give them tennis, life skills, and fitness training. But along with that, we really focus on that scholar and scholar athlete. So we give them academic support, and with our eighth grade students, as they're preparing for this high school admissions process and they're going through it, really giving them some time, some meetings, and just getting them through the process and getting them a better understanding of what they need to do to get into these competitive high schools.
And either one of you can jump in on this one here, but for a parent, we know that, it's just hard enough to navigate day to day. When you're talking about really trying to get someone into high school, some people think, well, that's not too hard. But the reality is for a lot of parents, difficulty there, the application process, knowing what to do, how to go about that. But I know that you spend time really trying to help parents navigate that. So what resources are out there to help parents to be able to navigate what could be one of the toughest times in their lives?
I'm happy to jump in. So there are a lot of resources. One of my favorites is insideschools.org. It's a great resource. I think it's about 20 years old. It's been around. It's completely independent of the Department of Education. So it's very parent focused. They have videos for parents to watch on the general admissions process. They have tips. They have a forum for parents so that they can ask questions. It's a really great independent resource with reviews, information about schools, virtual tours. That I think is a really great guide for parents in New York City through the complicated process.
Yeah. And then when we talk about this process, what are some of the things that people, well, I'll say common problems, common challenges that are being faced by parents as well as students during this time?
Well, listen, I think the first thing is immediately, it's a new process relatively where students are applying online. So just navigating a website, the platform of my schools, and just, figuring out their numbers on there. Students have lottery numbers, their priority groups, so figuring out what does that mean for your student. and then using that to say I'm going to apply to these schools that I match to or I fulfill the requirements for. And then even understanding that certain schools, they might have different percentages of seats allocated. So, where do I fall in that seat? And then just navigating that and saying, I need to build this list of schools. How do I do that? So just being very careful and, being very thoughtful about that list you're making.
Never want to downplay the fact that picking a high school can be sometimes an overwhelming process for parents, particularly if you've never done it and you've never been through it before. Give me some insight and give our viewers some possible groundwork here in terms of what am I looking for? What are some of the factors when making that decision for the right educational institution for their child? What should people be looking towards?
I can jump in. Sorry. Yeah. I think firstly, you want to really consider where the school is. So commute. I think that's a big factor. Students are in 8th grade now. They're going to be in high school. Are they okay taking the train, the bus? Do they want to be walking distance? Right. And then along with that, you want to kind of look at extracurriculars. So, I work with students who love the sport of tennis. And so they want to go to competitive tennis teams in the tri-state, in New York City. But then along with that, they're interested in other sports like track and field, football, basketball. So they want to be there playing those sports, and then just getting into clubs or doing robotics and music, different things like that. So really just putting all of those things together to make that list and looking through those options when they're applying.
Nicole, you want to add in? I'm going to ask you because, for yourself, really putting a program together that really corrals all of this and brings this opportunity for parents as well as students to be able to navigate is really, is really powerful. Talk to us about how people can really access the resources and be a part of this.
Sure. So I really think time is the biggest privilege here in New York City for parents. And if you put in the time to, find out what the resources are, they're not just public schools. Charter schools are gaining a lot of traction and doing some really high quality education. I have 2 teenage high school age students who go to a charter school here in Brooklyn. And so there are scholarship opportunities for private and parochial schools throughout the city. So, really understanding the depth of all of the options outside of just the list of 12, I think is also something that a lot of parents don't think is available to them, but it actually is. We have quite a few students who I work with who get scholarships to private schools, go off to charter schools, scholarships to parochial schools or Catholic schools. There are programs and there are opportunities out there that are available to families outside of the public school system.
Yeah. And Raiyan, I know that there are requirements. Excuse me, when you have high school students, they're going through this process, and there comes a whole shipload, literally, of requirements. Some may be familiar with, some not so familiar with. How are we navigating those students through some of the required things that are demanded of them because they're taking a step up, and sometimes that in itself is just overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially with a lot of these schools they want to get to know the student holistically. And, the best way to do that with so many students applying is to do assessments that they might have to take online. They might ask students to submit essays, to do video statements, to create portfolios if they're applying in the arts. So you really want to take a look at those opportunities and, check the website of these schools, see what they're asking for, and just make sure you're focusing on the prompts and the questions that they're asking. And then from there, making yourself look the best. And so with us, we take that time to really revise and, give the students the best version of themselves when they're offering themselves to these schools.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, I do want to talk about this because for students, I also know that this is a special time of year, the specialized high school assessment test. I see Nicole shaking her head. People are really getting ready to gear up for that. How are you navigating them through that? Because that is, I was talking to some students about this before. They're like, I'm really, I'm just going to try my best. But, they really are really anxious about it.
Yeah, I mean, the city has programs like the Dream program, which does test prep with students. That's very focused on taking practice tests and helping them understand what the mistakes that they made and going through the correct answers. One of the things that we really do that's I think really valuable is we partner with an organization called Bespoke Education that brings in a tutor to help our students really develop test prep skills. So ways to help them eliminate answers quickly, for example, is also something that I think is really important and helps serve them in all tests that they take. So test prep strategies are really give students an advantage to the specialized high school exam because really at the end of the day, if whether they get a spot at those schools, it only depends on how well they do on that exam.
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly keep our eyes looking and seeing how students are faring. But thank you both for the resources that are being provided, not just for students, but for parents to really be able to navigate this process. And Raiyan and Nicole, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much
us.
for having us. Yeah.
Excuse me. I was
Yeah.
allergies, but here, I want to let you know that if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website at WHEDco.org. We got more show coming up. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up right after this.